Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and when we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a pretty interesting show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want today's full show of all of our segments, be sure to follow us on the Dreamerspro podcast. We have that pinned in the comment section below. Anyway, let me get into this topic here. So, yesterday, I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was kind of going through the internet, and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I came across a show that was recommended to me from Stephen A. Smith's podcast. And in this particular segment, it was about a 24-minute video of him essentially going on a tirade and coming to the defense of ESPN. Now, let me just hip some people to what's been happening. If you guys don't know, ESPN just recently had 20 layoffs, and a lot of them was some high-profile people, front-facing talent at the network. You had Max Kellerman, you had Jalen Rose, you had Jeff Van Gundy, you had a few others that I can't remember, but they got rid of some pretty high-profile names there. So a lot of people were discussing this. A lot of people like Clay Travis and others. So I think some of Stephen A. Smith's comments that we're going to get to a little bit here, a little bit later today, I think some of his comments were aimed towards him, although him and Clay Travis have actually sat down and had a conversation. But anyway, we know some of the things that's been happening. They said they did it to cord cutting, essentially, that they lost $5.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken, from some other divisions of their business. In this case, we're referring to Disney. We also heard about the rapid dip in subscribers. I mean, they lost 30 million subscribers to ESPN since 2011. That's a pretty significant drop. That means you're losing, 3 million a year, probably something like that. 3 million subscription a year. So there was that and some other things, right? People have been discussing this a lot. So yesterday, Stephen A. Smith decided to come off a vacation to come on the Stephen A. Smith podcast, the one that he always tells us that he owns. And he came out to essentially address all of the chatter out there from people that feel like maybe ESPN is going to fail, maybe that feel like ESPN is on a downward spiral, that they're not going to be around, they're not going to be relevant in the next 10 years. And he absolutely went to town. And he basically issued a public declaration of war, that he is ready and they are ready to shut down any company that feels like they're going to be competing with them moving into the future. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Stephen A. Smith had to say here. It was very lengthy. I want you guys to listen to it in its entirety so you have context when we come back in the second half. So we're going to play that for you now, and then we'll come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to that.
But the facts alter, or at least give me cause to pause for a second. Let me give you some of these numbers, y'all. Because naturally, being at ESPN, I can simply call up stats and numbers. Do y'all care to hear any of them? I mean, does it matter to y'all? Does it matter to any of y'all? ESPN Digital remained number one in sports category with 103.5 million unique visitors. ESPN Digital achieved its best May ever by unique visitors, surpassing its next competitor by a record-breaking margin of 39.8 million. The runner-up would be Yahoo Sports, who's pretty damn good, by the way. CBS is behind that. Bleacher Report is behind that. Sports Illustrated is behind that. Minute Media, the Players Tribune, is behind that. STN Video is behind that. USA Today Sports Media Group is behind that. Whistle Network is behind that. Major League Baseball is behind that. What y'all talking to us like we losing for? And I say we because that's my day job. What y'all think y'all doing? I'm just tired of listening to folks bantering back and forth and acting like, listen, it's hard times, it's hard times, it's hard times. I mean, what has happened to the worldwide leader? What has happened to ESPN? Business has happened. May of 2003, ESPN laid off 400 staffers. Where were y'all then? Oh, you were employed by ESPN. November 2015, ESPN laid off 300 staffers. Where were you then? Oh, you were employed by ESPN. April 2017, 100 on-air talent was laid off. What was the number the other day, fellas? 20. 100 were laid off in 2017. 100. November 2017, 150 staffers. 6 months later, 150 staffers laid off. November 2020, 300 staffers laid off. Let me do my math here. 800, 1,100, 1,250 folks have been laid off by ESPN since May of 2013. No one was surprised. Because when you're represented by a company like Disney and you have stockholders and shareholders to answer to, and you have budgets that you have to meet, and the mandate is that you lost $5.5 billion, this is what comes with it. So you have to make sure you transition yourself into being a liability or an asset. You have to make a distinction between the two, because just coming to work every day and doing your job, no matter how great you are, folks are going to look at the numbers. That's why I came on the air and I told you I could be next. What I meant by that is if my ratings drop, I could be next. If my subscribers wasn't growing by the thousands each day, would I have this podcast? When you see people successful, why do we deem them successful? Because they generate revenue, not lose it. What do you think gonna happen to Dan Le Batard's podcast if he ain't generating any numbers? What if Dan Le Batard walked in tomorrow and said, I can't pay y'all. I'm not making any money. We're losing money. Because we got stockholders and shareholders to answer to. Is he going to be the devil? Y'all are something else. Y'all are something else.
So you heard what Stephen A. Smith had to say there. He went off. He didn't hold back, and he was pretty brazen. He was pretty in your face about it. He wasn't backing down. And you saw that he was calling out different companies by name, saying we did better than this company, we did better than that company, we better than this company, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, he started listing some of the stats and figures that ESPN currently holds. He also gave the number of the amount of employees that they let go over the last, 20 years. And I think the number he mentioned was over 1,500 or 400 or something like that. So he mentioned that number as well. But he also mentioned how successful they were. He also said that, listen, these guys are not going away. They're not going anywhere. Now, what are my thoughts about this? Number one, there's some things that he said that are true, and there's some things that he said that I'm going to have to push back on. Number one, is ESPN the worldwide leader in sports? Absolutely. There's no question about it. They're the number one sports media company in the world, right? So that's, at least in the United States, that is 100% true. He was 100% telling the truth. Secondly, some of the data points that he put out there, I'm going to assume that they were true. I don't think he would go up there and start spewing falsehoods all over the table there. So I think that was true as well. Now, the other part about they're going to be here forever. There's no one competing with them. There is no competition. That's not true. Here's the reason why it's not true. First of all, if it were true, you wouldn't need to, if it wasn't true, you wouldn't need to address it. Who addresses falsehoods, right? It's like the Joker that said, I live in a hut. Okay, come to my house and see my hut that I live in, right? You don't address those type of things. But him addressing it means that there's some validity to it. Number one. Number two, people are privy to the public information. The fact that ESPN lost roughly 3 million subscribers per year over a 10-year window, that is a real number. It's not made up. It's not that nobody forged it or nothing like that. That is a made up, that is a real stat. That is truth. That is the truth. The fact that, there's this advent of independent creators that are really eating into the market share is absolutely true as well. Now, the reason the effect may not be is profound as you may think it is because it's still new. It's still new. Picture this for a second. YouTube was created in 2005. So YouTube has been around for what? Less than 20 years. A lot of these people that you see that are getting a lot of views and all of this stuff, these guys have only been on YouTube really for about 10 years, right? They haven't been there for a long time. Comparing the people that have been on TV, and you look at how long these guys have been on TV and how long ESPN and these companies have been, they've been around for decades, literally decades, going back to the 90s and like decades, right? So they have years and years and years and years of a head start. Now, if you're telling me, or if you're saying you're going to give these independent creators, all of these different sources, another 10 years or 20 years of time to put in the work, you better believe the numbers that you see today are not going to be the numbers you're going to see 10 years from now. It's not going to be the reality. Number 3, if what he was saying were true, that, what is it? These guys don't really pose a real threat and all of that stuff. He mentioned someone, which is Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee, let me just say this for you guys out here. Pat McAfee came out of the system. He was a former NFL punter. I think the story was after he retired, he applied for a job at ESPN. He was never given a job. Follow me carefully. Pat McAfee and maybe his business partners or whoever decided to start the Pat McAfee Show. They started this show and their podcast, and they have arguably the most successful sports show, independent sports show in the United States. This is not even up for discussion. They have well over 1.5 billion views, and God knows how many downloads they have of their podcast. ESPN saw this and said, no. We got to offer these guys a deal. But before they had that deal, they had, I believe, a $120 million deal with FanDuel. Now, you pull up the guy that's earning $20 million per annum to analyze sports at ESPN. They're very few. The only people that can command that type of salary are usually former athletes. Just like you're going to be seeing Tom Brady going to be earning $37.5 million a year. He signed a $375 million deal with Fox Sports over 10 years, but that's Tom Brady. Skip Bayless is not being paid $30 million a year. So they went out to recruit somebody that was essentially independent, and they now brought him on TV. Now, why would they do that? Because they understand that what he's doing brings value to their business. Otherwise, he wouldn't do that. Number 2, he also said something else, if you paid attention, which was he spoke about everyone knows that now in this business, you have to have views. You have to have, You have to have a podcast. You have to have a show. If you want to be, to use the term that he used, gainfully employed. So all of these guys, that's the reason now you see them with podcasts, etc., etc., etc. Now, here's something you may not be aware of. As somebody that's been doing ESPN, that's been doing this business for a few years now, there's some things that Stephen A. Smith doesn't understand. This is with all the money he has. This is with all of the intelligence that those guys have. This is all of the people that he has producing his show. There's a lot of things he doesn't understand. Number 1, he was talking about the subscribers. The subscribers are irrelevant. They are irrelevant. It's just a cosmetic stat. It just looks good on the outside of the page. It's not the subscribers, let me just say this, that make you money. It's the viewers, the people that watch. And the majority of the viewers that watch your content are not subscribed. I'll repeat that once more. The majority of your viewers that watch your content are not subscribed. I'll give you guys a quick example of this. We have 150,000 subs roughly. Last month, we got 5.2 million views. This month, we already have 2.3 million views in 11 days. Now, how is that possible? Do we have 3 million subscribers? No. It's about your returning viewers. We get about 1.5 million returning viewers every single month. Stephen A. Smith is looking at his 237 subs, 34,000 subs, but he's not looking at his 22 million views. That's what they're not paying attention to. A lot of people don't understand it. So he's looking at the subscriber growth, but he's not looking at the views. Just because you have a lot of subs doesn't mean that you're getting a lot of views. And the reason you see such an inflated subscriber number, and he already had a check before you even started this channel, is because a lot of these people that come from TV, they get priority. So they have this inflated number of subs, and it gives you a false sense of being big when in reality is not. Skip Bayless has about the same amount of subs as us. Skip Bayless can, in a month, what Skip Bayless can get in a month, we can get in a week. So don't pay attention to so even he doesn't understand it to a certain extent. He doesn't understand it to a certain, it's not like, it doesn't work like that, right? So he's getting a push because he's on TV, right? Now, if you take a lot of these people, I'm not talking about Stephen A. Smith because he's immensely talented, but if you take a lot of these people, you say, okay, you're not going to work on TV. You're going to go to journalism school, you're going to learn sports, then you're going to go start your own YouTube channel and then build your own audience. Majority of these people will fail. The majority of them. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this to say that there is a real threat out there. And you will continue to see those numbers diminish as other people put out because now they've eliminated the middleman. So you see them fired up is because these guys don't want competition, but competition is here to stay. As they say, it's the American way. You got to be ready. It's capitalism, baby. That's exactly what it is. So these are my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section, and we'll catch you in the next show. And be sure, if you want the full show, be sure to follow us on the Dreamers Pro podcast, which we have pinned in the first comment in the comment section below for the full show. Catch you guys on the next one.